You're here because you've given your partner a clear timeline, 3 months to be in weekly therapy, actively working on their avoidant attachment. And now the 3 months are up and you're wondering what to do next.
Or maybe you're thinking about giving a timeline and you want to know what to expect. What actually happens when you set this kind of boundary?
So today, we're showing you 3 different ways I've seen this scenario play out with clients in this exact situation over the years, and what steps they took in each. Because what you really need to know now is, how do I tell if they're doing the work? And at what point do I accept that this isn't going to change?
By the end of this video, you'll know how to tell the difference between real change and performative change. And you'll have permission to honor yourself, even if the answer isn't what you hoped for, because the patterns we're about to show you reveal everything about whether your relationship is workable or not.
In our last video, we talked about timelines and breadcrumbs. We told you about Zoe and Marcus, how after almost 2 years together, Zoe finally realized what she was calling being patient was actually self-abandonment. So she had a conversation with Marcus saying, I love you. I understand your attachment style, but I need you to be actively working on it. That means therapy, self-reflection, both of us growing.
And she set a timeline, 3 months for Marcus to be in weekly therapy, showing consistent effort. Not perfection, just real effort.
That was 3 months ago. And what happens next will depend, because the truth is, when you give someone a timeline like this, there are 3 common ways it plays out. And each one tells you something different about whether this relationship is workable or not.
So today, we're walking you through all 3 scenarios. And as we do, we want you to notice which one sounds familiar.
Before we do that, for those of you new here, I'm Tarina Terry.
And I'm Joel Terry. And this is Da Vinci. We're both licensed therapists. I bring the science.
And I bring the heart. Da Vinci brings the purse.
Now we're going to show you exactly what these 3 scenarios look like so you can see clearly what you're dealing with.
So in scenario 1, Marcus does what a lot of avoidant partners do when you give them a timeline. He pushes it.
Zoe said, I need you in weekly therapy doing the work within 3 months. Notice this was clear, specific, actionable.
Month 1, nothing. Month 2, nothing. Week 11 of month 3, Marcus starts looking for a therapist.
He puts out some calls. He sends some emails. And then week 12 arrives. The 3 months are up. And Marcus says, I've reached out to 5 therapists and I've only heard back from one who can't get me in for 2 weeks. I'm trying, Zoe.
And Zoe feels completely stuck because technically he did reach out. Technically, he made some effort.
But she's also noticing he waited until there was literally no time left. He did the absolute minimum of her request, making calls, but he didn't actually do what she asked for, be in therapy, doing the work.
This is a performative effort, and here's how you recognize it. The timeline became the goal instead of the growth becoming the goal.
Marcus organized his effort around doing just enough to not lose Zoe, not around changing his patterns. Real change looks like, this is hard for me, and I'm scared, but I'm going to prioritize this because I can see how my avoidance is hurting us.
Performative change looks like, I'll do the minimum required at the last possible moment to satisfy your request.
When someone consistently waits until external pressure reaches maximum intensity before taking any action, they're showing you something important. The motivation is compliance under pressure, not genuine commitment to change.
So here's what Zoe did in this scenario. She honored the timeline. She said, Marcus, I asked for you to be in therapy doing the work by now, not just looking for a therapist. I can see this isn't a priority for you, and I'm not going to give you another 3 months so we can repeat this pattern. I care about you, but I also care about myself too much to accept this.
And that was hard. Part of Zoe wanted to give him credit for reaching out at all. Another part felt guilty. What if the therapists really haven't called back?
But Zoe recognized the pattern. He didn't value her request until he was about to lose her. And even then, he only did the bare minimum.
So Zoe chose herself. She walked away, not because she didn't care about Marcus, but because she finally cared enough about herself.
If you're in scenario 1 right now, drop a comment saying, scenario 1. We see you and we know how hard this is.
In scenario 2, Marcus does start therapy. About a month into the 3-month timeline, he finds a therapist and begins going. Progress, right?
But here's where it gets complicated. He schedules every other week instead of weekly, and sometimes he cancels. When Zoe asks what he's learning, he says it's good, but doesn't share anything specific.
He's going to therapy, technically doing what she asked, but nothing is really changing between them. He's still withdrawn, still shuts down during conflict, still needs days of space after any emotional conversation.
3 months pass. Zoe notices there's some effort, but it's inconsistent. And she's doing all the work to track his progress, ask about therapy, initiate vulnerable conversations. So she decides to give him encouragement and more specific guidance. She says, Marcus, I appreciate that you started therapy. That took courage, but I need to see consistent effort, weekly therapy, conversations with me about what you're learning, some sign that you're applying this work to our relationship. I'm willing to give this 3 more months, but I need to see real change, not just therapy appointments.
Marcus agrees. He seems genuine. Zoe feels hopeful. 2 months pass. He's going to therapy more consistently now, but he still won't talk to her about what he's learning. He still withdraws for days after any disagreement. When she asks about attachment, he says, yeah, we're working on that, but offers nothing else.
Zoe realizes she's exhausted. She's tracking his effort more than he is. She's managing her expectations, her anxiety, her hope, while he's just showing up every other week to therapy without any integration into their actual relationship.
So she decides she doesn't need to wait another month feeling hurt and resentful. She can see this is his limit right now. He's willing to go through the motions of going to therapy, but he's not willing to be vulnerable with her.
She accepts that he's doing what he can, and it's not enough for what she needs.
This is what I call checkbox therapy, going through the motions without integration. From the outside, it looks like effort. There are appointments, money being spent, time invested, but therapy without application is just expensive conversation.
So Zoe ends the relationship in this scenario too, not with anger, but with clarity. She honored his efforts and her needs. Both can be true. If you're in scenario 2, comment scenario 2. You're not alone in this.
And before we get to scenario 3, we want you to know we created a worksheet for this. It helps you assess whether you're seeing real change or performative change in your relationship.
It's in our Inner Circle Growth membership. That's tier 2, where you get worksheets like this for every video, plus access to our community of people going through this exact thing.
Click the join button below to learn more. It's also a way you can support us and what we're doing here if these videos are helping you.
Now let's talk about scenario 3, because this one's different.
In scenario 3, while Marcus was resistant at first, as avoidants often are, he started noticing a pattern. This has happened in every relationship. He gets close, he pulls away, the relationship ends.
And he really likes Zoe. He thinks, if I can't make it work with her, maybe I'm not cut out for relationships at all. So he decides to actually try this therapy thing. And within the first month, he's in weekly therapy. And to his surprise, he starts learning about himself.
He's seeing a therapist who specializes in attachment and uses internal family systems, also known as IFS, or parts work, to help her clients heal. Marcus learns about protector parts, the parts of him that withdraw to feel safe, as well as the exiles, which are those younger parts that got hurt when he was vulnerable and who the protectors are protecting.
He also starts accessing his self, that grounded, compassionate center, and he practices talking to Zoe from that place.
And here's what's important. It's not perfect. It's not linear. He still withdraws sometimes, but now he notices it sooner.
He might still need a day to process, but then he comes back and says, I shut down yesterday. I felt myself getting defensive and my impulse was to pull away. I'm working on that. Can we try that conversation again?
This is repair. Not just apologizing, but actually coming back and trying again.
This is real effort. Here's how you can recognize it. 1, he's not just going to therapy. He's doing the therapy work. He's talking about what he's learning. He's applying it to their relationship. 2, he's making repair, catching himself sooner, coming back after he withdraws, trying the conversation again. 3, Zoe's nervous system is calming down, not because she's managing her anxiety better, but because his behavior is becoming more consistent and safe. This is called co-regulation.
And that third one is critical. Real change means your baseline anxiety decreases because you're experiencing more consistency and safety from them, not because you're lowering your standards or getting better at bracing for disappointment.
In this scenario, Zoe decides to stay, not because Marcus is perfect now, but because she can see real change. She can see him catching himself, making repair, showing up differently.
Her nervous system tells her this is different. This is safe enough to keep building on. And that safe enough is key. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about trajectory. Is the trend line moving towards more emotional availability, more vulnerability, more consistency? Or is it flatlined with occasional spikes of effort?
If scenario 3 is your reality, comment scenario 3. We are celebrating with you because real change is possible.
So let's talk about what's actually happening neurologically when someone makes real behavioral change versus performative change. When we're talking about attachment patterns, we're talking about deeply ingrained neural pathways, automatic responses that have been reinforced for years, sometimes decades. Real change requires neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new neural connections and pathways. In other words, your brain has to literally build new roads, and that takes time and consistent practice. In scenario 1, Marcus's brain never actually started building those new pathways. There was no consistent practice, no repetition, no integration. He made some phone calls, but his avoidant patterns stayed completely intact. In scenario 2, Marcus started the process. Going to therapy created some new learning, but without consistent practice and real-world application, those new neural pathways stay weak. It's like going to the gym once every 2 weeks and never changing your diet, and then wondering why you're not seeing any results. The brain needs repetition and integration for change to stick. In scenario 3, Marcus is doing what neuroscience tells us actually works. Consistent therapy provides the new insights, combined with real-world practice applying those insights and self-correction when he falls back into old patterns. That combination, insight, practice, and repair, is what strengthens new neural pathways and weakens old ones. And here's the timeline piece that's so important. 3 months is actually the minimum amount of time to even begin seeing this kind of integration. Some research suggests it takes closer to 6 months for new behavioral patterns to become more automatic than old ones. And for deep attachment work, we're looking at 18 to 24 months of consistent therapy, self-reflection, and practice. But you should see measurable progress in 3 to 6 months increments. This is why Zoe's instinct was so smart in scenario 3, checking in on her own nervous system. Is my anxiety decreasing because their behavior is more consistent, or because I'm just getting better at managing my expectations? This is what we call co-regulation, when two nervous systems influence each other. Your nervous system is incredibly good at detecting patterns and predicting safety. When your partner's behavior becomes genuinely more consistent and safe, their regulated nervous system helps regulate yours. You can both calm down together. However, if their behavior is still unpredictable and you're just getting better at bracing for impact, that's not co-regulation. That's not real change. That's you adapting to their limitations through what we call self-regulation under stress. And that's the difference you need to recognize, because one is a relationship moving toward security through mutual co-regulation. The other is you shrinking yourself to fit their comfort zone.
So let's get to the heart of it. If your partner is doing scenario 1 or 2, I need you to hear this. It is not because you weren't clear enough. It's not because you weren't patient enough. And it's not because you weren't worth the effort. Some people just aren't ready. Some people will only ever do performative change, just enough to keep you around, but not enough to actually transform the relationship. And some people do the real work. Scenario 3 does happen. Not as often as we'd like, but it happens. Your job isn't to figure out how to make scenario 3 happen.
Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
You can't therapize your partner into change. You can't love them enough or be perfect enough to motivate their healing. Your job is to recognize which scenario you're actually in and to honor yourself accordingly. You deserve someone who is willing to do their work, not because you gave them an ultimatum. Sure, the boundary you set may have been the impetus, but what we're looking for is someone who cares enough to respond to the need you expressed because they want to be someone who shows up for the person they love. That person might be your current partner, and it might not be. If you're realizing you might be in scenario 1 or 2, part of you might be grieving right now. Part of you might be angry. Another part might still be hoping you're wrong. All of those parts make sense. This is hard. Letting go of hope is one of the hardest things we do as humans. But there's also something inside of you that knows your worth, that's been waiting for you to listen, that deserves your attention too. Because here's the truth. Both partners need to be willing to do the work. And that's not a high bar. That's the baseline for a healthy relationship. And if your partner isn't willing, that tells you something important. Not about your value, but about their capacity right now. And you get to honor that information and make a choice that protects your heart.
Subscribe and take care of your heart.
And remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together.